Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org. Consequence and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks for making your way here for checking out the series. You know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out new interviews just like this one every single week. So it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. You can also find us on the old podcast places: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, NPR, WFPK.org, Consequence, or of course right here on YouTube for the video versions. Anywhere you get your podcast from, you can subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. That's me, Kyle Meredith, today talking with Renee Elise Goldsberry. You know her, of course, from Hamilton, Angelica Schuyler. You know her as Wiki from Girls5Eva. You might know her as Mallory Book from She-Hulk. She is back with her very first album, her debut album. She's been a part of albums for a long time, but she's calling this her debut album. It's called Who I Really Am, and we get to talk about this. This is, as I said, it's such a good record. If you like musicals and you like Broadway, this is a pop album for people who like musicals, or it's a musical album for people who like pop. It's somewhere in the middle, and because there's so many different genres, and she tackles so many different feelings, and we're gonna figure out how that happened. We're gonna talk about how that happened. We're gonna get into a lot of the stories behind the songs. We're going to hear why it took her this long to finally do her debut album. Of course, calling it Who I Really Am. That gives its own questions, very obvious questions. All originals except one. Now, one she co-wrote with our buddy Sarah Bareilles, and we're going to talk about that one as well. But she does her own version of Satisfied. This is one of her biggest moments in Hamilton, and she sort of made it her own here. So I want to hear about that. We're going to talk about Girls5Eva and a whole lot more. So let's get into this and discuss the album Who I Really Am. It's Kyle Meredith with Renee Elise Goldsberry.
How are you?
Well, first off, the compliments. Who I really am. So this is a fantastic record. There is so many different like subgenres going on here. I was surprised with every single song. It's like, oh my God, is there nothing she can't do? Is there no nothing she can't tackle right here?
Won't put on here is the question.
But it's seriously, I mean, this is a big thing. This is a great accomplishment for anybody. But for this to be, I mean, you've been a part of albums before, but this is what you call your debut album, right?
Yeah, it feels that way, specifically because the platform has changed. Lord knows my family and friends have gotten albums from me in the past. But on the larger stage, I've had the privilege of being a part of wonderful collaborations with many different artists, many different genius songwriters, and this is all me with some really brilliant people that I went into the studio with.
Yeah. So so was it always part of the plan? I mean, is this something kind of always meant to get to, or was there kind of a light bulb moment? It's like, I need to do this record.
I've always wanted to. I just sometimes you say you're going to do something and all the other things come first. I think what's a miracle is the fact that Broadway and some success on television and film led to an opportunity to do this. That really is a miracle to me because when I started my career, I didn't think that you could be known for anything other than being a recording artist and have anyone take you seriously as a recording artist. It works the other way around.
Mm.
Everyone loves to see recording artists transition into film and television and go see them. Nicole Scherzinger just won a Tony, so people love to see that. But for people to embrace this in the way that they have is really a miracle and wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And to call it Who I Really Am.
Yeah.
And I just want to point this out at the beginning that I just saw you as Mrs. T on Mulaney's show.
Oh.
And if this is who you really are, well timed. That's
So funny. It's so funny. I wear some different hats. I wear
yeah.
some different hats, and the making of this album has helped me to embrace that as my power, as opposed to something that is somehow or another diminishes it. For so long, I've been staring at my love of songwriting and my love of singing and recording, and thinking it was hard to do because I was told you had to really be in a very narrow lane to be legitimate. And that's really not who I am. And I don't think that's who we are as a people, especially not in the way that we ingest content anymore. That's just not who we are. You can't tell us who we are. We really can be everything.
Yeah. And I mean, that was probably always the story, right? But we had this idea that the t-shirt we wore, especially growing up in the 80s and 90s, the t-shirt you wore defined the only thing you could listen to. And
Absolutely.
I remember being a teenager in mid 90s, whatever that was, and not telling my friends that I liked Genuine, or something like that. Because it's like we weren't allowed to, or whatever that
Yeah.
was, and
Who are you if you don't?
yeah,
Yeah.
but we were all listening to everything all the
Yeah.
time. So why
Yeah.
can't that be reflected in what the artist does too? I mean, I keep
Absolutely.
I keep my greatest idols over my shoulder there, with Prince and
Yeah.
Bowie, and they were, I mean, they defined it from the beginning. So to what you're saying, to finally make that jump to go into this, usually there's no plan. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, I mean, we hear so many different sounds from you. I'm like, does that come naturally, or do you make a point of it going, I really am going to show everything that I can do, or a lot of that I can do?
Well, it took 4 albums to write the 4 albums. It feels like 4 albums because there's a lot more music. I just chose 13 tracks.
Yeah.
But it took 4 years because because I really don't, I'm not, there's no like kind of master strategy of it's going to sound like this one thing. That is definitely a concept. But for me, it was really, let's just express. I mean, it was 2020, and I think anything that came out, we wanted to explore. And then I looked back in 2022 when it was time to release the album, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's so many outliers here. How can I put this song Staring next to this song Who I Really Am, next to Satisfied, next to this other like power ballad? How do I do that? Well, I can't, because people don't do that. I didn't remember my friend Bowie over there. And so I thought, well, maybe I need to revisit all of these songs and make them sound like one thing, because I'm introducing an artist. And a friend of mine came to see one of my shows because I've been performing the whole time. And he said, what are you doing? No one that shows up for you expects to see one thing. If I go on Spotify, if I go anywhere right now and look for you, I'm going to find so many different versions of who you are. And that was even before Mulaney.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, and we have license to do whatever we give ourselves license to do. And I think we underestimate audiences when we think that they only want a box. That's not who anybody is.
No.
And so this has been a wonderful lesson for me, just to embrace the outlier.
Yeah. What I do like, and of course, knowing your background, Broadway, etc. Like we feel that though throughout the record. I mean, I said, on one hand, it can be a pop album for people who loves musicals because I
Yeah,
feel that in
yeah,
these, and especially, I mean, you start with introducing. I mean, you set this up like it's a bigger piece, which I mean, just that's something I look for. I love when, it's because the album, right? It's
yeah.
we're in a singles world, but if you can still put an album together and you set it up, I mean, that's some Sergeant Pepper stuff right there.
Can I tell you that I have a 12-year-old daughter, and a couple of years ago, actually, when I was working on it, she said, "Mommy, what's an album?"
Yeah.
And I said, "What?" And she said, "What's an album?" And she was just like in her own world, like in the backseat of the car thinking. And then she started to answer it. She tried to formulate an answer. Is that like when an artist decides to put out a bunch of songs at the same time? And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Why would they do that?" And I just was like, and it was so freeing for me
Hmm.
because, that's exactly what I was doing. And I knew I still wanted to do it, but it made me realize there are no rules. She's freer than I am, and because she's new. But the world that she knows, like you said, it's whatever it is. And she didn't think it was wrong to have an album. She just had never conceived of it because she listens to radio
Hmm. Hmm.
all day long. That's what she loves. And I guess, and I think she understands what a playlist is.
Right. Which,
Um,
and how that's different than an album.
and how that's different, but that's something that she curates.
Right.
So it's been a wonderful journey in opening my own mind.
Yeah. And even as I look at the track list here, I mean, Love Returned. What a great
Yes.
example of,
Never thought in a million years anybody would let me put that on an album.
yeah, because and like at first time I heard it's like little Ani DeFranco happening
Yeah.
here, and but this is talking about storytelling
Yeah.
as you're a storyteller. Like, how did this song happen? Because you are I don't want to say you're talking because you're definitely it's more than that, but this is kind of a version of that style of emoting.
It is storytelling. I just started I had this great uh loop track from my guitar player, Jordan Peters from my band, who was, in the middle of 2020 just sending me riffs all the time, just throwing riffs my way because he was probably, stuck in an apartment in New York City riffing. And I remembered this moment in college where I got my heart broken. And I remembered becoming every cliche of a heartbroken person running through the rain. And I just started telling this story, and it just kind of came out of me that way. And and it was right, you
Yeah.
know. And I just thought, well, maybe, I don't know who's ever going to hear this. I don't know that it could go on my album because I'm certainly not going to do 13 tracks of that. Because the moment doesn't need to be told in that way, but every moment needs to be told in its own way, and that one came out like that. It's a story, and sometimes you start singing, and
Mm.
then there's this theme. My life is a scene from a movie. Like I'm this is like almost a joke, like I'm in a movie. And it just came out in this metaphor, and as like I'm in a coffee shop telling a story, but sometimes I have to sing. And I at some point I realized if I don't put it on the album, that I can't call it who I really am.
Mm. I'm so happy that song exists. It's one of my favorite moments of that record.
Thank you.
Which happens a lot. You hear artists talk about that. The song that like there's always that governor in your head, right? That it said, "Can I do this?"
Yeah,
Is this how a song's supposed to sound like?
yeah.
And if you can push through that, it ends up being one of the more special moments a lot of times for a lot of people.
I'm so glad to hear it. Yeah, at some point I realized I can't not. So let's hope the world gets it. And if they don't, somebody will. That's the beauty of music. Somebody, you know, somebody will find it. Somebody will get it. You just hope it's more people than less.
Right.
But
Right.
as to me in my heart, as long as it finds somebody who's because there's like another potential title for the album was the moral to the story. And that's what it is at this point in my life. If I'm telling a story about heartbreak,
Mm.
there's something. It's not just sitting in the moment of the heartbreak. It's the looking back on it. If I'm telling something about breaking someone's heart, I know what ended up happening in the end. As that story of I met someone, I know that in the end, the best thing I ever did for the person whose heart I broke was get out of the way.
Yeah.
So it's just a wonderful vantage point as a storyteller to have lived a number of years to know the moral of the story.
Yeah. And hearing that up against the other ones because that for that to be such a specific type of song, I mean, Staring, this incredible single, bombastic almost.
Yeah, my God, I wish you would have told me that. I wish you would have given me that adjective before I had to write my bio about this. That's the best one I've heard. I didn't come up with that.
Yeah. But it is, I mean, that's a big song. That's a big song. I mean, you have these very tiny personal moments in there, and then you have something like that. I mean, talk about swinging for the fences. And I hope you don't mind just the general question again, but I'd love to know how that one came about.
Oh my goodness. You know what? A great bass line.
Mm.
That I do. I actually I tried to re-record that song several times because I just thought this is just too out for the rest of the album. Who is she? I mean, I'm even singing in a different part of my voice. I'm like, if I'm debuting myself as a singer, they're going to be like, who is that? Can you do that? There's a bad effect on my voice. I'm singing in a different part of my register. And so I took the song to Nashville, the greatest players in the world.
Mm.
and had them, kind of, let's put it through this band so that it sounds like the same artist. And one of the greatest bass players I've ever known in my life said, whatever that guy's doing from LA, it's something, I don't even know what it is. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. So yeah, it started with this amazing, like, out bass line. Is it blues? Is it like some modern? It's kind of off kilter. Don't, da 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 da
I mean,
da.
it's got swing to it.
It
Like,
swings.
yeah.
It swings, and it's everything we know about a blues, but it's not. It's like modern and off. And I had to figure out how to, I had to find my way into the groove. And once I got there, I didn't want to let go. And then I just started singing about my husband.
Mm.
You trying to objectify him because what's obvious is that he's a great person. What's obvious is he's a great person, but I just loved the idea of like reducing him to parts, you know?
How do you feel
And
about it?
he loves
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't to get a song like that about them?
it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And God, smiling is so fun. And
I love it. It's summertime.
yeah, you're so close. I was like, I hear a little bit of even Gaga style in there. And that's what I talk about. These points, that you can, it doesn't sound like you're ever emulating someone. And you could have. I mean, you're an actress, right? You could go into those characters if you want to. And so I kind of hear just these little DNAs of people, but it never sounds like you're trying to be that person.
I'm
That
so
makes
glad.
sense.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad. I wouldn't know how to.
Yeah.
But you're right. I am an actress, and the value that my value as an actor is really finding myself in things.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that you said that because I do feel like it is 100% who I am, even as it morphs into different things throughout the 13 tracks.
Yeah. Which of course is an easy seg to Satisfied.
Yay.
What does that song get to say in the context of this story, in the context of who I really am?
Well, what's really beautiful, and it was not intentional, most things are not in my world, especially when they work out. But is that, what is satisfied? What genre is that? It's literally about capturing a moment. That's the only allegiance it has. It doesn't have an allegiance to a genre. And so how could I put it on an album and it fit unless all of the rest of the songs are doing that in some way, shape, or form. So it actually ended up being the best thing. I can include this song because there are all of these other moments happening that are just about capturing a moment. Why does it exist? It exists because I had to find a way to sing that song in concert, and I couldn't bring the cast with me. All I had was this badass band and these amazing singers. And so we arranged it in a way that was, forgive me, satisfying
Mhm.
for an audience of people. I mean, I always joke at the beginning of my concert, I'm not going to be able to make it out of here alive if I don't sing that song. So how can we share it in this space in a way that is satisfying to you? And so we invented that. It always works. It always kills.
Hmm.
It is not the same thing, and it is the same thing. And we recorded it, and I love it. And if you will allow me to continue to elaborate,
Please.
ironically, in 2020, when I started this, I've always wanted to do an album, but in 2020, when everybody else was making cooking shows,
Right. Everybody's got their
like
bread. Sure.
awesome podcasts, and I couldn't pull that together, I had an opportunity to make an album for this label, and their thought was, can you do covers?
Hmm.
Can you do like standards and covers because you're the singer and that's what people will want from you? And as a debut artist, you should come in singing other people's music with covers. And I thought, kill me now.
Right.
Please, there's nothing harder for a songwriter than to have to look through songs other people have written to find out how to tell who they are. It would have been a nightmare. And then they said, oh, and the expiration, I guess there's a period of time when you cannot record a song that you've done in a show, and that had just expired. So they were like, oh, and you can now re-record Satisfied. Can you do a cover of that? And I thought, no, I've already done it. It's perfect. I
Hmm.
love it the way that it is. But then I thought, if I'm going to put Satisfied on an album, then why do I have to do any other cover?
Hmm.
No one else cares if I sing My Funny Valentine. But Satisfied, maybe they'll care about. Will that give me license to do my own songs, and they said yes. I didn't end up putting the album through them, but it stayed because it was just a good idea.
I'm really happy you didn't put the album out through that. But I love how it works because, of course, I know the song, but I didn't need to know the song. You know,
Oh, good.
that song stands, and it feels like it's a part of it. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's, what was it, 12 tracks and that one, or or
Thank
what?
God.
Yeah, right. And
Which
that's
is great. That's why we put it like right in the middle. You
yeah,
know, just like it's a part of who she is. How could I say who I am without including that song when really that's the song that sets me up to have an album.
yeah. And
So it's
returning to the scene of the crime like that, so well timed, of course, with the 10th anniversary. And how was the reunion? What was that like at the Tonys? Because
oh my
watching
God.
you all do that felt just as mind-blowing as the first time.
I just Lynn Manuel Miranda, I love to drop his name whenever I can. Just sent me a text this morning with a TikTok of somebody recording their face while watching the
Mhm.
Tony performance, like going through all the emotions when different ones of us came out, like just laughing like it because it was just such a joy for us. We're still all so high from it and missing each other already, and it was only 2 days ago. And my response was, oh, just we're just mind blown that the world would celebrate with us the the thing that is our greatest joy, and that's reuniting as a family. That the world would recognize that they're a part of the family and celebrate it with us and allow us to have that moment. And it was over too quick.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
It was awesome, and it'll live with me forever. And it's really just kind of explains how this whole show feels, and that is, how can there be something more
Mm.
to get to receive from this? It's mind blowing.
And I know the show has always been around, whether you're in it or out of it, but when you get everybody together like that, I mean, is it like you know, you go hang out with friends that you haven't known in 20 years and everybody just becomes the person they were in that moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is like that. It's a lot of, it's love all over the room. We just keep saying it over and over and over again. And also we're ridiculously silly. So, you know how in every group of friends you kind of have a language,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
have a way you start talking, you have your inside jokes, yeah. So it's all of those things that come just rushing back in, a lot of laughing and a lot of our phones up all the time, trying to save it, trying to
Mhm.
capture the moment.
Which
Yeah,
thank you for the content, by the way. I've enjoyed that as well. I know a lot
thank
of us
you. I have
have. Yeah.
so much. I have so much content. I have a whole documentary of Hamilton content. And I totally, yeah, I have a documentary that we premiered in a bunch of film festivals last year. And I went to my cast and I said, please download all of your content and send it to me. And one of the cast members, Andrew Chappelle, said, should we just license all this to you now, Renee? Because clearly you're going to try to make something of this. Yeah, we love each other. We're in heaven when we're together. We're sad it's already over, but it's not over because this whole 10-year celebration is going to continue. We have some other things in store.
Nice. Nice. And then I want to bring up the other family that you've been a part of for the last few years, which is Girls5Eva.
Yay!
Of course, Sarah's been on the show a handful of times, and we love having her around here. But of course, then, God, listen. Okay, the show is not. It doesn't exist right now. New episodes, right? It got canceled. Did it
No, no,
officially
no.
get? What is it?
I'm so glad you asked. Let me clarify because it's so
Please.
crazy. The narrative, we're glad that anybody's talking about us and wants to talk about us at all. But I'll tell you, the show was picked up by Netflix for
Mm,
a third season, and they only picked up one season.
mm.
So we did the one season, and it was
It
spectacular,
was spectacular.
absolutely spectacular. And then they also loved the show so much that they bought the right to air the first two seasons that were on Peacock. So you can see the first two on Peacock. You can see all three seasons on Netflix because they went out of their way to be able to provide that. And now we're just kind of, in a holding pattern,
Mhm.
waiting to see if we would ever make more. Um, but there was no canceling because there was no like, oh, we had planned to do something more. In my heart, I love the show so much, and the show is so loved,
Mhm.
even by the executives at Netflix that I know and love. I have this dream that in like 10 years, we're going to be back dressing
That's how it would
alike
happen,
in
right?
harmony. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be even funnier in about 10 years when we're dressing alike and doing harmony and like, trying to take over malls that I'm sure won't exist by that point. So that's my dream for the show. But what it's given me, other than the opportunity to create this character, Wiki Roy, that is my Sasha Fierce.
Hmm.
She's my Sasha Fierce. She is the
Nice,
reason
nice.
why I've been able to. I'm sure that all of the things we've already talked about might not have been as easy for me to discover if it had not been for this Wiki Roy character from Girls5Eva, who's so unapologetically ambitious and obnoxious, but we kind of love her for that. But the other thing that's a gift to me is knowing Sarah Bareilles
Mhm.
and Paula Pell and Busy Phillips, knowing these women who are they're just bosses. They have so much to say, and they are always, always, always just changing the world with the art that comes out of them. Sarah, this is a segue. When we were shooting Girls5Eva, I told her, sheepishly, that I was recording an original album, and she said, "Oh, I have a song. I have a great song that I wrote, and I think you would sing it great. I'll send it to you. Maybe you want to use it." And I was like, okay, like what is my life? And I had just written a song called I Met Someone,
Hmm.
and she sent me this song called I Don't Want to Love You. I Met Someone is about this moment where I tell somebody that has loved me and that I love very much that I met someone else and have to figure out how to make words to break someone's heart. And I don't want to love you feels like the other side of the coin.
Hmm.
It feels like hearing those words. It is so perfect because everything she writes is perfect. And I thought it was such a wonderful companion to, you know, both sides of that conversation.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I recorded it and I love it. And I finally had the courage to send it to her and she gave me her stamp of approval. And it's one of my favorite songs on the album.
So that's what I love about this is in my notes right here, I have those two songs together. Not because I
Oh,
put it together thematically, which I'm always a little late on picking up all the cues, right? But but that's what when I heard those two, I hadn't read the liner notes. I didn't know that Sarah had co-written on it or anything like that. But when I first heard Met Someone, as I was talking about, like you hear these little sort of
yeah.
things, it's like I can hear little Sarah
Yeah.
in her style, the way she phrases vocals or something like that in Met Someone. And then to read the notes and see, oh,
Yes.
but Don't Want to Love You is actually the song that she is
It's
like,
the song that she wrote.
I mean, those songs literally were meant for each other.
I'm going to take some notes here on the things that you've said because you know what you're doing. Yeah, I absolutely feel like they were meant for each other. I'm so glad you said it, especially because she is, I think maybe the one of the greatest singer-songwriters that's ever lived. I can't believe I get to live in the same time as her and actually that feel that she's my sister and actually have her kind of, calling me and checking in from time to time saying, "How's it going? What are you doing? What support do you need?" It really is very pinch me to have the support of someone who does it better than anybody. And it's I think pretty brave, perhaps a little reckless to put a Sarah Bareilles song and a Lin-Manuel Miranda song on an album, a debut original music album. That's pretty brave. Because what's most likely is everyone's going to hear it. They're going to pick those two songs off and be like, "These are my favorite," and move on with their life. And so the fact that other ones here have stood next to them, bravely and confidently makes me very happy.
When you've got songs like Staring and Love Returned and you're fine. You're
Thank
fine. It's
you.
you
Thank
got no problem standing up next to those songs. And
you.
come on, you're an absolute legend, with what you've done in your career. So, putting those two on a pedestal higher than you, you're all standing there. You know
You're
this. Yeah.
Thank you. I actually need to hear it. I'm going to write that down too. It's helpful to hear because you what one thing when you do something and that's why I want to take notes on what you're saying. When you do something, you're one of the greatest gifts is recognizing
Mhm.
what other people are doing when they do something well. Like not
Mhm.
only like, oh, that's great, but knowing why it's great, knowing what was hard about it, knowing what kind of mind-blowing thing that maybe no one else might get is happening. Like that's kind of my perspective when I watch some of my heroes work. And so it could be daunting, but really what it is inspiring
Mhm.
because one thing they all do is that they take great risks. And
Well done on the risks that you've taken,
thank you.
all over this album and in your career. I mean, geez, there's so many things. I mean, what do you do? What's going on next?
What's next? That's really great. Well, in the moment, it is learning how to promote this album. Actually, that's actually one of the trickiest things I've found because I'm so used to promoting other people's work, and I feel like I'm good at it. Like I love to do it because I believe in it. I know who I am in it, and what has been a little trickier is standing up for myself and answering the question, who are you really, Renee? I mean, that's actually the only reason I regret making that the title track is because I've had to find an answer for it. And even that is growing because the answer keeps changing, and that's good.
Mhm.
Um, right now, the answer is simply me in all of its forms. And it's also not about the answer, but about uh, the search to figure it out.
Yeah.
The search to figure it out.
Well, I hope you keep searching, um, whether you arrive there or not, if it means albums like this, and I hope it doesn't take too long for you to do your sophomore album,
Oh my
because you
God.
got your whole life to do your first album,
I
right?
know. And then you got to be ready. I've heard people say, I've heard artists say, you better have a lot of music stored up for your sophomore album. And right behind my computer screen, I'm looking at a wall of song titles for album number two. And
Nice.
I'm glad that you said that because I'm ready.
Yeah, right on. Well, I can't wait. I love this album so much. I'm so happy you made it. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it.
Thank you for giving me a better way to talk about it. And most importantly, thank you for celebrating it. You can't imagine how helpful it is in figuring out who I am and what this is to hear people that you respect affirm you. Thank you.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.